So
Hare
I'll just try
Krishna.
to cover the purport. So that should be okay.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Maybe there is a connection problem.
No,
We'll
Mataji,
wait
clearly
for-
we can hear you. Hare Krishna, go ahead.
No, not me.
Prabhuji probably has logged out.
Prabhu is not here. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, 2 o'clock Chaitanya classes we will not have going forward.
No, Mataji. It
Is
stopped for the time being.
it stopped? Okay, not change of
Yeah.
timing or okay, Mataji.
No,
Hare
no, not change of time. No, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Just a minute, Mataji and Prabhuji. I'll just call Prabhu.
No, I've just come back now.
Okay. Hare Bol.
For
Hare
some
Krishna.
reason, I got disconnected. I'm sorry
Oh,
about that. I don't know why. I think this is a problem with from my side.
Okay.
Okay, so we just completed the. Okay, I was sharing. Just a minute. Okay, so we just completed the shloka and then the translation. So we will just continue with our this thing because we will not read the purport. That's what I was trying to say. Okay, so yeah, 2.4.5. That's the verse that we are doing. Rajo vacha samichinnam vacho brahman sarvajnasya tavanagah mo vishiryate mahyam re katayatha katam. All right, so before we start the prayers, Mangalacharan. Om Ajnana Puttimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Sutantikam. Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschayata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so just seeking the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis who are present here, senior devotees, so your blessings and the mercy, so that I'll be able to speak. The right words come at the right time in the right spirit. And I'm doing this as a seva or a service for my Guru Maharaj and for the pleasure of the Lordships. So, and also as a learning for me. So that's, just wanted to call that out. Right. And yeah, Hare Krishna. Okay, so you are able to hear now, I think. Yes. See, actually, these verses, we are actually looking at this particular chapter, which is called the process of creation. So the process of creation, in fact, there is a complete detail with respect to how the creation came about. But then here in this particular shloka, we are seeing how Parikshit Maharaj is actually asking Sukadev Goswami. That's what Suta Goswami is saying to the sages in Naimisharanya, that Rajo Vacha, that means Raja is speaking. Every time we see Rajo Vacha, it is Parikshit Maharaj. And he's saying, Parikshit Maharaj is saying, "O learned Brahmana," that is, he's addressing Sukadev Goswami, that you know everything because you are without material contamination. Therefore, whatever you have spoken to me appears perfectly all right. Your speeches are gradually destroying the darkness of my ignorance, for you are narrating the topics of the Lord. So this is a wonderful realization that we are actually seeing from Parikshit Maharaj. Is there an echo? I'm
Yes,
hearing an
Prabhu.
echo.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Now it's not there, I think. Okay.
No, Prabhuji.
Yeah,
No,
now
it's
it
clear.
seems to be all right. Okay, fine. So this is a wonderful realization that Parikshit Maharaj is having. And Srila Prabhupada in his purport, he's saying that the crucial test for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is that one should get positive enlightenment from the act of hearing. We all are hearing now. We all are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada says that the crucial test of whether we are hearing properly or not is that we should get a positive enlightenment from the hearing. It should lead to awakening of our mind and intelligence. So Parikshit Maharaj actually feels that he's coming out of the darkness, or he is coming out of illusion. So this is the statement from this particular shloka. We can understand that. And then just for our reference, if you look at the previous shloka, so we've seen how Parikshit Maharaj actually is developing, or he has developed kind of a satiation for material life. He's content with it. He doesn't want it anymore. The possessions that he had, even he's of course the king, so everything belonged to him in the entire kingdom. And then the position, the family, wife, children. So he's also realizing the purpose of life, as to why one has to follow the principles of Dharma, and then how one has to go beyond the cycle of birth and death, old age, etc. They want to get out of this cycle of birth and death. And that's the reason why, there is this first sign is detachment to material things, and then attachment to spiritual. So this kind of a shift over that is happening for him. Here, this is actually being reconfirmed by the king in this particular shloka. And then Srila Prabhupada actually is saying that there are two things that happen to Parikshit Maharaj. One is that there is surrender to Srila Sukadeva Goswami, and faith means Parikshit Maharaj's faith in the Lord is increased. I mean, or there is more faith in the Lord as well as in the Guru. There is surrender, and then there is also increase in the faith. So there are two things that happen, and this is one of the tests we can understand how if the medicine is working or not. Like when we are sick and then we take medicine, we will actually come to know if it is working or not, because all those old symptoms disappear. The pain, the fever, or whatever we had, we'll see that it is reducing. If not completely disappeared, we'll know that it is reducing. And then our strength is coming back to us and all that. So in that way, now this medicine is the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then from this, we can actually, one can feel oneself about the progress that is being made. And the progress, there are two-pronged. That means one is the reduction or in the attachment to material things, and then the asakti or the determination to get connected spiritually becomes more and more. So these are two broad ways in which it will work. Of course, each one will have our own different afflictions or different kind of experiences, but it will invariably fall into these two categories. So I think that we can all understand. Then Prabhupada actually is saying in the purport that there are two types of reciters. Prabhupada is trying to bring out from whom we should hear actually. So who are these two types of reciters of the Bhagavatam? So Prabhupada calls one of them as the professional reciters or chanters. So what do we mean by professional chanters or reciters of the Bhagavatam? So they are the ones who are doing this as a means of livelihood for themselves. So this is one type. And then the other type is the uncontaminated, materially uncontaminated people who want to do Srimad Bhagavatam as a seva for the pleasure of the Lordship, and and not expecting anything in return. It is more as an effort or as for self-improvement rather than anything else. So only pleasure of Krishna and also the upliftment of fallen souls towards liberation. These are the points which matter for the unprofessional. That means a person who's not pursuing it as a livelihood, but then who's doing it as a seva or as a service. So these are the two types of reciters we have. One is a professional who is doing it because his livelihood depends on it. Then the benefit, obviously, we can understand is in the second instance, or when we hear from a person who is carrying the second type of seva that he's doing, which is he's not dependent on it for a livelihood, or he doesn't want to, or he's not expecting anything in return. Depending on it for livelihood means what? I mean, it's not a very noble thing, because you are one is actually expecting some money or something in return for the particular seva that is being rendered, which is not a very good thing. And so when a person hears from a devotee, pure devotee of the Lord, who is not doing it for a livelihood, then the actual aspects of samandha, avideya, and prayojana will begin to manifest. So now we might think, okay, how are we doing this? Are we actually doing this? We will try to fit it for our own situation, right? So every day now we are logging in for the Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, and then there is so many speakers, all of us come. So if we, and then, I mean, how pure is a speaker, we don't know. So now, hearing from a pure, uncontaminated soul or the spiritual master, how that is happening means, I heard this in one of the lectures where Maharaj was saying that reading Srila Prabhupada's purports and translations is, it tantamounts to hearing from a pure, uncontaminated soul, because we know that Srila Prabhupada is a pure, uncontaminated soul, and then he just wrote it for the welfare of everybody. He wanted to give Krishna consciousness to the entire world, and on that note, with that kind of a mood, without expecting anything in return. He did not take even a single penny for himself. So we know the entire life story of Srila Prabhupada, where he just did all this work, getting up early in the morning at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, doing the translations for the Bhagavatam, and then passing it on to his disciple, who's later on typing it out and then taking it for the press. There's a whole lot of struggle that Srila Prabhupada went through. That was only for bringing out or giving Krishna. That was a mercy of Prabhupada that was flowing through. And that mercy is even now flowing if we just read his translations and then try to understand what his purports are saying. So hearing this way actually gives a tangible experience in the heart of the listener. There is a change that happens in us. Ignorance will disappear in the first instance. We may not understand the philosophy completely, but then we will realize that the ignorance is disappearing. And that is why in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a shloka in the 9th chapter, which talks about Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam. This particular knowledge is Rajavidya and Rajaguhyam, where it says, Pratyakshavagamam dharmyam. So there is a direct perception that we get. We don't need any confirmation from anyone else. We will know for ourselves. Yeah, and the example that's given is, it's like eating. We can perceive our hunger is mitigated when we start eating. And then when strength, and then we can also actually feel the strength coming back to us. Today is a wonderful day to experience that, because yesterday was Ekadashi, and then the people who have fasted from grains or done a little more intense fasting. Today morning, when we break our fast, then we can understand how there is two things that happen. Our strength is coming back, so we feel a little more our own self. And then there is also hunger that is getting mitigated. So both happen. And then in one of the lectures, I think it was Radhanath Maharaj, I'm not sure. So anyway, he was saying how we'll have to hear with faith and love. And this love that we're talking about is, he's taking the reference of Brahma Samhita, where it says, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. So we are doing bhakti when we are listening. I think there is no doubt about it, right? So Navavida Bhakti, Shravanam and Kirtanam is part of the Navavida Bhakti. So when we are sitting simply, not doing anything, but hearing to Bhagavatam or reading the Bhagavatam, it is bhakti. And Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. So how that bhakti should be? It should be with the ointment of love. So with love, when we are seeing this, then we get the benefit. So now, both aspects Prabhupada is covering. One is what are the qualities or the qualifications of a speaker, as well as how the hearer should be qualified. What is the mood of the hearer? Then what happens? The cloud of ignorance disappears. And then, of course, the sun of Krishna is rising in the heart of the practicing devotee. And this actually is Pratyaksha because we can experience that in the Nityam Bhagavata Seva that is happening, which is the daily dose. In fact, one of the acharyas was saying the daily dose is sometimes, this medicine is there, and just one dose is not enough. When we are generally, you go to the doctor, he'll say, okay, next 4 days you take this. If it doesn't reside, then you come back again. We will think about it later again, what to do. So nobody gives a one dose, one time. Okay, you take this and it is over. No, it's not like that. Especially if the patient is very sick. All of us are very sick. At least I am very sick because we've been sick for many births, and then we've accumulated all that, and then so there is this tendency to move towards material aspects is so strong. The attachment or the bonding is so strong that it has to be actually yanked out. There's a lot of effort that is needed, and this effort will not be taken care by just one dose. So there has to be a regular dosage. So every day morning, one dose. So that's the Nityam Bhagavata Seva. And in fact, this Nityam Bhagavata Seva was actually established and encouraged by Srila Prabhupada, I believe, in ISKCON in the initial days. And one of his disciples, he was sharing that Prabhupada always stressed on the Nityam Bhagavata Seva a lot by writing to the temple presidents. So we know, like in those days, Prabhupada was communicating by letters. He used to write so many letters every day. And then he used to, wherever he was, whether he was in India or he was traveling across the world, but then he used to get letters and then he used to reply to them. So in that, he's writing to the temples, asking them to conduct the everyday Bhagavatam. And then he was always emphasizing on the importance for practicing devotees, like how it is important for them to hear Bhagavatam. And this, they used to call it as boiling the milk. Some of you might have heard this particular term or phrase. So this boiling the milk is what actually? It is actually diving deeper into the aspects of Srimad Bhagavatam. See, Bhagavatam as it is milk only. It is nectar. But then what we are trying to do by listening and then by speaking or whatever, we are trying to extract the sweetness out of that Bhagavatam, and that is boiling the milk. Then when we boil milk, what happens? Of course, all of you here know that it becomes thick and then it becomes sweet. So it's like the rubbery, so it becomes so nectarian that it is more relishable. So there is more nectar that is coming out of it. So professional reciters, when they are talking, this is not the case. Why this is not the case? Let's try to see that. What happens when a professional reciter is reciting the Bhagavatam? He might have a wonderful command over the language, a sense of humor, the way he's putting across his remembrance on the topics might be wonderful. All of it might be nice and great. It might be much better than another person who's not doing it as a professional, who's not doing it for his livelihood. But then there is contamination in that particular delivery. Why? There is contamination in the gross level as well as in the subtle level. For some, it might be both. Some, it might be in the subtle level and probably not at the gross level. So why does that happen? Because we've heard the acharyas say they want to please the listeners, as their livelihood depends on that, on what they give. So if we know that somebody is giving something, then we would like to please that person. And when you have to please somebody, then you will not want to say unpleasant things. It's not like, oh no, you have to die, you have a material body. So that person may not take it so well, especially if that person is materially very connected. So then he will say, oh, what is this person saying? No, I don't think I'll call him next time. So that fear is there in that speaker. So he will try to put things in a nice way. And then he will try to hide the truth and then not dwell on it much. So these are the activities which will then make the recitation get contaminated, because the entire truth is not told in the way it has to be told. This example, if you recall, in few, I think probably the previous chapter or the chapters before that, even King Prachina Barhi, he also felt that. Sorry, that was okay. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 4th canto, it comes. where King Prachina Bhari is actually telling Narada Muni, when Narada Muni is giving him the entire Tva, then he says, Narada, tell me why this was not told to me before, he says. Why my teachers, my advisors, why didn't speak to me about this? And then he comes to the right conclusion. He says, either they did not know. Because he's a king, Prachina Bharhi, and he has employed the best. So he has advisors, he has qualified brahmanas who are playing the role of teachers and advisors for him. But he says, these people never told me whatever you're telling me now. Why is it so? There are only two possibilities, he's continuing. He says, either they did not know, or even if they knew, then they chose not to say it. And both are wrong. So that's how he concludes there. And then he gets a little upset with them. You're telling me all this, but my people could have told me before itself. So here you can make out the difference, because Narada Muni is his talk or speech about the Tattva is so uncontaminated that Prachina Bharhi king was able to get the import of what Narada Muni was speaking. Whereas, of course, before Narada Muni came, I mean, he was a king, and then he had his brahmanas and teachers who were advising him and all that. From him, he has never heard. So he gets a little upset with them. So like this, we can see how professional reciters, there is a flaw, even though we might think they are speaking the truth, but then the mercy is not flowing. Then another thing is that when we are hearing from an unalloyed devotee means he is connected to the parampara. When he's connected to the parampara all the way up to Krishna, then the mercy is flowing through without any stoppage or diversion or dilution. When knowledge is coming through, mercy is also flowing through. So the moment we hear from such a person, then it makes a wonderful impact. And that impact is what Parikshit Maharaj is actually feeling here. And then he is communicating that, or he's saying in this particular verse. So then if you look at the next verse, I'll try to share that. Just give me a minute. Yeah, just completed this. 4.6, 2.4.6. So who would like to read?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji,
yes, Mataji. I'm seeing Dandas pronounced to you, but I'm seeing.
I was muting Prabhuji, that's why.
Sorry, no problem. So I am seeing hands raised by Suma Manoj Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Shall I, Prabhuji?
Yeah, you can read, and after that, Ram Reddy Prabhu, you can read the translation for this particular verse. Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Bhuya eva vivatsami bhagavanatma mayaya yathedam shrujate vishwam durvibhavyam adhishwarai. Hare Krishna. Dandot pranams.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna to you. So the translation, Prabhu, can you read?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I beg to know from you how the personality of Godhead, by his personal energies, creates these phenomenal universes as they are, which are inconceivable even to the great demigods. Thank you.
Even to the, So now, in specific, Parikshit Maharaj is asking about what he wants to know. And this is with respect to the creation, how the Lord has created it. So this is what is this verse all about. And then we'll try to see a little bit of what Srila Prabhupada is saying as a purport for this. So if you see, actually Parikshit Maharaj is asking Sukadev to tell how the Lord is creating. So now it is not the question of who is the creator, because Parikshit Maharaj knows, okay, Lord, Supreme Lord is the creator. It's not a topic of discussion about existence of God or who's creating everything. Those sort of initial level kind of doubts. No, that is not what Parikshit Maharaj is having. He's saying, I know the Lord. I mean, when he says, tell me how the Lord is creating, means implied is, I know the Lord is creating. And that means further, if you want to see what it implies, it means I know this is God, and then I know he is creating. Now you tell me how he is creating this world. So in this way, and then what does it mean? So that is what he is trying to ask. So we actually, Prabhupada says that this kind of a doubt or a question comes in everybody's mind when we see the world around, when we are a little reflective, when we are not bothered too much about material things and try to look at the nature around when we are traveling or whatever. I mean, or when we were kids, most often when we are kids, such thoughts come because we don't have any other things bothering our mind, So we just try to absorb what we see and then try to dwell on what we are seeing. So in those wonderful moments, invariably everybody would have got this thought about how this whole creation happened, and then what could be there beyond the mountain that I'm able to see? Is there more to it? And those sort of things. So we actually, Prabhupada says that we learn and then we inquire from learned persons things we don't know. So there are a lot of things that we don't know, and then one of them is, of course, creation. And then we have to learn, and then by inquiring from learned persons. And Prabhupada says that creation is a topic that we don't know. And the spiritual master, being Sarvajna, like Sukadeva Goswami, he knows, so he will be able to give us that knowledge. And that's what this verse is all about. So nothing, Prabhupada says that nothing gets created automatically. Have we seen anything being created automatically? No. If there is a creation or if there is an object that is there, it means that there is creator. So creation means creator. So only foolish people will think otherwise, or they will try to say otherwise, like creative energy is independent of the creator. It acts automatically, like creation happened on its own. There's a big bang, etc., etc. So all of a sudden it came into being. No, I mean, you are accepting that something came into being. It had a starting point. See, every scientist in this world, I mean, a regular scientist, believes, understands, and accepts that there was a starting point for the Earth or the place where we are living, or the solar system, or the cosmic space that we observe. Whatever is being observed through the naked eye or through telescopes, whatever it is, everybody understands that there was a starting point. So now the starting point is there when then somebody has started it. So now, but then that point is not highlighted, or they don't want to accept it. They'll not say that there's somebody who created it. It just came on its own. And that's the kind of foolishness. Prabhupada says that they are foolish actually. So Prabhupada gives some simple examples, like even electrical energy. When we see some electrical energy coming at the mains, then we should understand, or we realize that there is huge science or some creation that is behind that, which is the transformers, the transmission lines, powerhouse, everything. And then now, okay, if the power is coming from the powerhouse, so that is right. Okay, but in the powerhouse, who's moving it? Then Prabhupada comes to the point where he says, there is an engineer in the powerhouse who's monitoring and controlling everything, who knows what is happening. So likewise, the Lord is also supervising creation. And then, of course, in Bhagavad Gita, there is this Parashya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate, and then Maya Dhakyena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. So we can understand how everything is coming from the Lord, and the Lord is reason for the creation to exist. It would be a boy may think that it is automatic, but then a regular sane person will not think like that. Yes, but then in the creation that we see, what is happening is even an exalted devotee sometimes gets bewildered by the potency of the Lord. And that is why Krishna says in the 9th chapter that fools, they deride me. So what's that particular shloka? Anybody remembers or you want to say? I'm just asking. Avajananti mama mudha manusham anumashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Sorry. So what does it mean? This is 9.11. So fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. That's what Krishna is saying. And so even Brahma and Lord Shiva, they also get confused or they get bewildered sometimes. They are also bhutas, very powerful bhutas, means living entities. But then even such powerful demigods who are actually managing the universal affairs, much like the ministers of the appointed by a king, they also get bewildered. They start wondering, or they begin to have some doubts. It is like a king is appointing the minister, and then he's going about doing his job. And in the course of executing his job, sometimes he gets bewildered, and then he foolishly thinks that he is as good as the king, or he is the controller, or he is the supreme one. This happens, right? Sometimes power corrupts us. So we think, oh, I'm doing so much, so yeah, I'm better than the person who brought me here, or something like that. So this kind of bewilderment happens with everyone, and including Brahma or Shiva. What to speak of small Ishwaras like us? So I mean, we all know by the Tattva, we understand that we are all controllers, Ishwaras. We all want to be controllers. But then Krishna has given us that independence, that mercy, that, okay, you want to be a controller, be a controller. And this is your sphere of control or influence within this, like within the family or within the society or within the larger family, extended family. Somebody might be a controller of that, like the eldest son or somebody like that, like that. Or maybe in the society, or he might play a role. He might be a operator or a mayor or an MP or whatever, So there might be, each one becomes, and then thereby, because of their designation, their Ishvara, the range of that controllership it varies. So everybody is a controller, it's just that the range varies. So everybody has that propensity to control. So likewise, all the way up to Brahmaji and then Lord Shiva. So people might get bewildered by seeing the creation of the Lord. And then here in the purport, Prabhupada says, the creation is actually the external energy of the Lord. We know that. Internal, it is not the internal energy. When you're talking about the internal energy, the interactions of the internal energy, we're talking about the leelas of the Lord, the avatars that have happened, various leelas performed, and then how Paritranaya sadhuna, vinashaya chadushkrutam, dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge, yada yada hi dharmasya. All these activities that are there, janma karma chame divyam. So these are all activities that are happening in the internal, which is interactions with the internal potency of the Lord, which is supposed to be much more powerful compared to the external potency of the Lord. And now this creation is actually an external potency of the Lord, creation from the external potency. That itself bewilders us. So, and then here, Srila Prabhupada is saying that Parikshit Maharaj is not asking his spiritual master, Sukadeva Goswami, to narrate Lord's pastimes in the beginning itself. He did not say, talk about Vrindavan to me, tell me about Rasa Leela, tell me about this, that, no, nothing of that sort. He first wanted to hear about the creation of the Lord, how he created. So Sukadeva Goswami actually did not say that the king should hear about the direct transcendental pastimes of the Lord. The time was very short, even though the time was very short, only 7 days were there. Still, Sukadeva Goswami started off by talking about the external, potency of the Lord, about creation, about how the Lord is creator, how everything is coming from him, and how he is the Sarva Karana Karanam. He is glorifying the Lord by talking about some of his potencies, his opulences, and all of those things, and they have not jumped into the topic of Rasa Leela and then things like that. Because sometimes why this example is taken is sometimes people think, oh, no, all this I know, that's fine. But I've heard so many times, just talk to us about Rasa Leela. In fact, Prabhupada was asked in India, in Bombay, when he was visiting after ISKCON came into being and it was becoming popular. Prabhupada was being invited by everybody, businessmen, influential people, everybody was inviting him to come to their house and then speak and all. In one such incident where I think he goes to a businessman house or something like that, where they directly say that, why don't you, this is all we know. Probably Prabhupada was talking about we not being the body and all. So they actually said, why don't you talk about Rasa Leela? Then he said, no. And then he did not speak actually. So he then came out of that particular place. So this way we can understand how it is not right to jump to that last chapter or the chapters which involve the the interactions of the internal energy. But first, we will have to go to the external energy, understand those things, develop a proper sambandha jnana with respect to Krishna, and then do avidaya, which is do service. And then the prayojana comes, which is more, what do you call Shraddha, or there's more faith in the Lord, and then there is asakti that is being developed, and so on and so forth. So like that, we will have to go. Otherwise, we will get bewildered. And that's how Prabhupada is concluding this particular thing, saying that the common man may be able to attain to such a plane by gradual process of service and inquiry, as we shall see in the behavior of Parikshit Maharaj. There should be a gradual process, and that is why the initial cantos, I mean, there are 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, and then each canto, it's starting from the foot of the Lord, and then from there, then upwards, and then upward, and then, like how they say, how one has to take darshan of the deities of the Lord. So we see the feet, and then gradually move up, and then look at the face, not directly look at the face. So that's not how one has to take darshan. So our approach should be gradual. And here also in the Bhagavatam, the first few cantos, I think you would have heard this. The first few cantos are the feet, and then the legs of the Lord, then the torso, and or the abdomen, and then the chest, and then the head, like that. So each canto, it moves up like that. So, and that is a process to go. So right from though they say that Bhagavatam you can hear any kind of I mean, you can hear from anywhere, you can start reading from anywhere, which is true. But then we have to have a proper understanding or a proper mood in which we will have to have this sambandha with or the connect to the Lord. Then we will have to start from the external energy, and that's what is being told here. All right, and yeah, so we can look at the next verse and start to share that. And just a minute. Hare Krishna. Yeah, you can see the sharing now. I'll try to get to that shloka. Just give me a minute. Yes, so I can see raised hands now. Nirmala Mataji and Meenakshi Mataji. So,
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Do you want to read the shloka?
Okay, Prabhu.
Oh.
Yatha kopa yati vipur yatha samyachade punaha yam yam saktim upasritya guru shaktihi paraspuman atmanam kritayam kritan karoti vikaroti cha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Very nice. And the translation now?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Please go ahead.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Kindly describe how the Supreme Lord, who is all-powerful, engages his different energies and different expansions in maintaining and again winding up the phenomenal world in the sporting spirit of a player. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So thank you. So there are many things that we'll have to understand here. So one is the sporting spirit, and then how he is maintaining, how he creates, he maintains, and then he winds up. These are the three things, no? Srishti, Sthiti, and Laya. So the three things. And then for those three things, then there are the three designated people who are taking care. So Brahmaji, and then Vishnu, and then Lord Shiva. So like this, those things are there. So now Parikshit Maharaj understands that these three are happening. So he wants to know how the Lord is doing it, who's all powerful. So that let us look at the understanding. He says the Supreme Lord, who's all powerful, is engaging his different energies and different expansions in maintaining and again winding up the phenomenal world in the sporting spirit of a player. So he is actually, engaging his different energies. So there are different energies of the Lord we can understand, and there are different expansions which are coming about because of his various energies, and he is all powerful, and how he is engaging them in winding up or in maintaining or even in creating. So this is how Parikshit Maharaj is asking the question. And then in the purport, actually Prabhupada is saying, he's taking the example of Kathopanishad, and then there's this, the Supreme Lord is described as the chief among all external individual beings. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. So that means that, see, everybody, we are all part and parcel of the Lord, but then there is a hierarchy, there is a gradation. In that, the supreme most is the Lord. All the others are subservient, including the avatars. We might equate them as on the same platform. We might take the example of a lamp and then how the other lamps are lit, and then it is all remaining there. But still, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead is considered as the first lamp which was used to bring about or bring forth the other lamps, or the other how the other lamps were lit. So this distinction remains, and we have to understand that. We can also know, some of you would have heard that even among the Vishnu Tattvas, the potencies that they have is not full. If Krishna is 100%, then potencies are only 95%. So there are some qualities that the avatars of the Lord don't have, vis-a-vis the Godhead, or vis-a-vis Lord Krishna, who's the supreme, and everything is emanating from him. So this distinction has to remain, and we'll have to understand that. So once we understand this, and then we realize how the Supreme Lord is maintaining innumerable other people. All other people are being maintained by him. He's Sarva Karana Karana. So anything that is happening, or anybody who's maintaining, ultimately the maintainer is the Lord. So all living entities, both in the conditioned state and in the liberated state, are maintained by the Almighty Supreme Lord. Then such maintenance is effected by the Lord through his different expansions of self and three principal energies, namely internal, external, and marginal energies. So Prabhupada is actually explaining the tattva in detail. Little bit here. He's talking about internal, external, and marginal energies of the Lord. So we know external energy is the Jaravastu. Internal energies are the expansions of the Lord, and then the entire spiritual planets are all coming from the internal energy of the Lord. And the jivas, that is all of us, we are the marginal energies of the Lord. So this is something that we know. So Prabhupada is reiterating that. Then the living entities are his marginal energies. Of course, we saw that. And some of them, in the confidence of the Lord, are entrusted with the work of creation. So some of the jivas become, they get a prominent role to play. Like in the school, everybody is a student of the school. Some of the students become head boy, head girl, or class monitor, school captain, and so on and so forth. So they get some position, even though they continue to be students. It doesn't mean that they are not students. They are still students of that institution. They also have to take up tests and pass and clear and learn and all that. But then, because they have some additional skills or additional intelligence, or whatever you want to call it, maybe the management sees something in them. So they are actually given a little more additional responsibility, which is the responsibility of monitoring a certain segment of people and all that. So like how we can understand that in the same way, from among the jivas, there are certain people who get this particular positions which are there. So that's what Prabhupada is saying. So they are entrusted with the work of creation, like Brahmaji, Marichi, etc. And the acts of creation are inspired by the Lord unto them. Dene Brahma Hridaya. So Brahmaji, we know, Lord gave the knowledge to him, and then he went about doing the creation. So like how school management is empowering them, giving them the knowledge, telling them what to do, and then how to control, what time, etc., etc., giving instructions. And then once they understand that instruction properly, they'll go about executing it. Then the management or the principal is very pleased. So like that. So this way, there's some people, some entities are given that. And then one of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is Supreme Personality of Godhead is the source of everything. Like how for a school, if you take, the principal will be the source. All the directions, all the directive, all the thought process of what to do, what not to do, where to concentrate on, how to groom, everything. The success of that institution, how many people we are able to get them out of this school and then make them successful in their life beyond, help them to get good college admissions or whatever it is. So they have their own plans and agenda. So everything is coming from the principal, and everybody place to that particular goal. So in the same way, everything is coming from the Supreme Lord, and then everybody is assisting the Lord in a way that it gets taken care, and then ultimately it benefits them. Like how by following the instructions of the principal, the student benefits, right? Because he or she is able to come out in flying colors, learn well, get properly educated, and all that, and then it's a kind of a liberation for that person from the school life. So likewise, the living entities, if we follow the instructions that are there, there is a benefit for us. So it might look like we are serving the Lord by following the instructions, but actually we get a benefit. That is how this Sambandha, Avideya, and Prayojana is all structured. So first we need to understand who's the principal or who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then Prayojana is do the service or follow the instructions, carry out the instructions. And then when we do these two properly, Sambandha is proper, and then Abhideya is there, then the result is Prayojana, which is where love of Godhead is established. Love of Godhead means, like for a student, knowledge is established in his mind. Then the time of examination is already established in his mind. So he can just go and then write the exam, and then definitely he will clear and come out with flying colors. So likewise, the Lord is giving us the assurance that you have the Sambandha and Abhideya. The Prayojana will happen automatically, because it's a follow through. You don't have to make a special effort for the Prayojana or think about the Prayojana or worry about it. You just do what you have to do. The love of the subject, or for the, like a student, he likes the subject so much, he's not worried about the final exam. He wants to read for the sake of knowledge, and then wants to understand more, and then he's happy. He's so involved in it. So such a person is already anyway, he will pass, because examination is just an incident that happens in future, and when he takes up the test, he will naturally clear it. So likewise, our examination is dead. So if you are practicing Krishna consciousness, then Mukti is already guaranteed, and that's the way we will have to look at this whole thing. So understanding the whole aspect that we are seeing now is the Sambandha Jnana, trying to understand the Lord, understand how he is not understandable. That's another paradox. And that's why ours is achintya, beyond our comprehension. So proper understanding means understanding that we cannot understand the Lord or his potencies or his energies. Why talk about internal potencies, the leelas and all? Even the external, what is coming from the external is the creation, also is so difficult to understand. And that is what these verses are all talking about. We can move on to the next, which is 8. I'll try to cover. I'll try to share that 1 minute. Hare Krishna. Yes, number 8. Just a second. I'm not sharing. Okay, so you can see it on the screen now. So Shanti Mata's hand I see is raised. So you can go ahead and read, Mataji.
Prabhu, I have one question can I ask pertaining to this text 7?
Yes, okay.
What does it mean the unconditioned marginal potency acts in the spiritual kingdom? When they say marginal potency, goes
Can you repeat it again? What do you mean by?
The unconditioned marginal potency acts in the spiritual kingdom. And
They are the liberal. Yeah. So you want to know who they are, is it?
Yeah.
See, unconditioned. Conditioned means materially conditioned. So unconditioned. That means who are not materially conditioned. And they are marginal potencies. That means living entities. So this means living entities who are not in the material world, but who are in the internal potency of the Lord. That means who are in the spiritual planets, who are in the Vaikuntha Lokas.
Okay, Prabhu. I understood. Thank you.
Yes. So Shanti Mataji, you can read.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Nunam Bhagavato Brahman Harer Adbhuta Karmana Durbhavyam Iva Bhati Kavibhischapi Chistitam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you so much. Translation, who would like to read this? Nirmala Mata, can you go ahead?
Hare Krishna. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yeah. O learned Brahmana, the transcendental activities of the Lord are all wonderful, and they appear inconceivable because even great endeavors by many learned scholars have still proved insufficient for understanding them. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. So this is all to do with how it is inconceivable, how we are not using our faculties, we are not able to understand the creation of the Lord. And that is what Prabhupada has explained in detail here. He has taken so many examples of how scientists, modern day scientists, through their telescopes, through their calculations, trying to understand what it is, but then that is not the full understanding. So this is the aspect of Prabhupada actually is saying how the ascending process is not a very good process, where you try to find out about the moon, read the moon, then try to go there, and go to the next planet, and try to develop a big telescope which will show the vision of the creation that is there, and then try to understand how each one is moving away from each other or coming together. And then if it is coming together, then you come to one conclusion. If it is moving away, it comes to another conclusion. This is how a science paper on astronomy is all about. Or they see what type of light is coming from there and try to understand what is there in it and all that. Okay, so this is all using our senses, our faculties that are with us, aided or unaided. It could be, I mean, a telescope also is man-made only. A powerful telescope is created by another person so that you could use that to see. So it is all ascending process. Is not going to give us the benefit, because why it is not going to give the benefit is because our senses are limited, and understanding God through our senses is futile, because that is why the Lord is called as Adhokshaja. This is a word that you might have heard. Lord is referred to as Adhokshaja, which means that a personality who cannot be comprehended by our senses. Our senses are including the mind, the intelligence, and the seeing, touching, smelling, hearing, all that, whatever we have with us. We cannot do that. So that is why the process that is recommended is the descending process. Descending process is you hear about the Lord from the Lord himself, or from the people who are, or not people, I'll say from the entities who are associated with the Lord, or the people who have received the knowledge from the Lord, and then they have passed it. So this is the avarohana, or the descending process, and that is what is recommended, because it becomes faster, easier, it saves time, and then there is no confusion. So that's why, like, Brahmaji, he wanted to know about the creation, or what he needs to do. He wanted to understand the Lord. So he sat and meditated. And then for 100 years, he did that. That's what they say. And then 100 years is not 100 our years, 100 years of Brahmaji's years, however you want to take it. So, but then later on he understood. Prabhupada concludes in that particular, purport. Then he says he understood. What did he understand? He understood that he cannot understand the Lord. That is perfect understanding. So like this, that is why it is inconceivable. Achintya. Chintya Beda Abeda philosophy, our philosophy is. So then what is the use if we are not able to understand? Somebody might say that, why should I get into all this? Of course, one has to get into all this to understand our position. Our sambandha with the Lord gets established. How we are Vibhu and then how we are Anu and then the Lord is Vibhu. How we are small and how he is great. Once this sambandha is established, then progress happens. I mean, then the Lord is happy. Okay, you have understood your position now. Otherwise, up till then, what it was, I am the Lord of all that I see. It was I-centric. And we thought we are God, or whatever. All those wrong understandings were there. So the first correction that happens with proper sambandha, where we understand we are Anu, and then the Lord is Vibhu. And how much of Vibhu? Yes, that is Achintya. That's all. The rest is not Achintya. We understanding that we are small and he is great is not Achintya. It is something that we can comprehend by looking at the creation as an example. Such a huge creation. If you want to have faith in the Lord, go and enroll in a class of astronomy where they'll show about the stars and all that, billions of light years and this and that. I mean, the mind really reels when you hear all that type of a narration. Then we realize, oh, Lord is really great and I'm so small. So even our acharyas give that example. I think Prabhupada once was saying, there are so many universes, he started off by saying. And then he said, in that universe, then ours is one universe, our Brahmanda is one. In our Brahmanda, there are so many planets that are moving around. And in that, our Earth is one planet. In our Earth, planet, there are so many countries. In that, United States is one of the countries. In United States, there are so many cities. And in that, wherever he was, let us say Chicago, for example, I'm saying. So he said Chicago is one. So in Chicago, there are so many buildings, homes are there. In that, our center is one such building. So like that, he's trying to bring it down to scale and then make us relate. And then he said, in that building, there is one temple president. He's actually talking to the temple president, who thinks he's the Lord of everything. And then that actually, then the president was saying, then I realized how Prabhupada was actually bringing out the aspect of how we are so insignificant when compared to the Lord. This is a very powerful thing. Though it looks like it's on a lighter note, but then the impact is so strong that we'll realize our minuteness or our anu or how infinite we are. Infinitesimal we are, sorry. Infinite is a lot. Okay. That's one of the things that comes out. And then we'll just read the next. Sorry, we have to read the 9th verse. So who would like to read this? Momita Mataji. Yeah, I see Momita Mataji's hand raised. So do you want to read it?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
Yatha gunamstu prakrite yugapat kramaso piva vibharti puri sastav ekaha kurvan karmani janmabhihi. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. And then the purport, the translation. Radhika Mata, do you want to read?
Prabhu, I'll do the next shloka, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Shall I read the translation, Prabhuji?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is one, whether he alone acts with the modes of material nature or simultaneously expands in many forms or expands consecutively to direct the modes of nature. Hare Krishna.
So here we are seeing there is no purport there, but this is something that we covered. The Lord can do it through his energies. So either he does it himself directly or he does it through his expansions. His expansions are his energies. So internal energies of the Lord. So either or expansion of the expansion also. So much of potency is there in the expansion that they can expand then further and so on and so forth. So that is how we have the Chaturvyuha expansion and then the first Chaturvyuha and the second and then so on and so forth from Balram. That whole thing. I don't want to go into the details, but we know they are all expansions or expansions of the expansion. So the Lord can function anyway because he is the Supreme Lord. He can do it like that. Like how they say, when the doorbell is ringing, a rich man, he can either send one of his servants to open the door, or he can send one of his family members to open the door, or he can come himself and open the door. So, I mean, that is up to him. Now, you can't say, why did he come himself to open the door? That is his wish. Sometimes he came, or sometimes he just sent somebody who was there. So, that is his wish. So, like that. The Lord retains that independence or that discretion is with him. We won't know what it is for. Okay. Then the next aspect, the 10th verse. Mataji, now you can read. Radhika Mata, you can go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Vichichitame tanme bravito bhagavan yatha sabde brahmani nishnatha parashminscha bhavan kalu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. And Subbarao Prabhu, you can read the translation now.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
The translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
Kindly clear up all these doubtful inquiries because you are not only vastly learned in the Vedic literatures and self-realized in transcendence, but are also a great devotee of the Lord and are therefore as good as the personality of Godhead.
So this is a wonderful connection here that we should understand. So what the king is saying is that kindly clear up all these inquiries that I have. This is the last shloka. Because they are vastly, because you are vastly learned. You know the tattva. And then because you are a tattva, you can make the tattva darshana for me because you are realized and you are a great devotee of the Lord. So how to choose a spiritual master is given here. There are two things. One is that the spiritual master should be learned in the Vedic literatures, and he should be self-realized, and he should be a devotee of the Lord. So if these two qualifications are there, then the person, these are the two qualifications apart from others, which are primary or essential for a spiritual master. So if you have to accept a spiritual master. Now, those things are already there in Sukadeva Goswami, and that is what is being highlighted here. Now, why this becomes important is, I'll just take another 5 minutes. So why it becomes important is because we saw how he is not understandable, inconceivable. We can't understand the Lord, all that we saw. And then what is our effort? Our effort is to understand. So still there is some understanding that happens, even though our senses are not qualified or they are not having the potency to understand the Lord fully. But still some understanding is coming. Where is this coming from? This is coming because of the mercy of the Lord. And this purport of the 10th verse is all about how it becomes easy, the process of realizing ourselves and realizing the Lord, the self-realization or God realization, or transcendental aspects which are mentioned in the Vedas. It is all realized by a pure devotee. And if we associate with a pure devotee, then that realization comes to us. So that is all. That is the essence. It all comes down to that. Because on our own it is not possible. So the only thing that we will have to look forward to is the mercy of the Lord. And that's what the acharyas say. Once we have the mercy of the Lord, the mercy starts to flow from the Lord towards us, then everything becomes a cakewalk. It is like, otherwise the Bhava Samudra is like it's like an ocean, the birth and death cycle that we are in. It is like a huge ocean. How difficult it is to cross an ocean, and that too a turbulent ocean. We keep getting tossed up and down and all that. But once we surrender and then the mercy begins to flow through, then it becomes as easy as crossing over a puddle that is formed by the hoof print of a calf. How much is a small puddle? Like the size of a, so we can just jump over it. We don't even think about it. We really have to cross it. Oh, what am I going to do? No such thoughts. That is only for the Bhavasagara. It remains a Bhavasagara, but then it becomes like this because of the mercy of the Lord. So our effort is needed only to attract the mercy of the Lord through following the proper disciplic succession, because that is the process that is recommended by the Lord. The Lord has said that tad vignatam sagurumeva abhigachet. So that knowledge you have to derive it through the Guru and no one else. And then once that is happening, then the mercy of the Guru and the mercy of his Guru and so on up to the Supreme Lord, then there is a clear path that is established between us and the Lord. And it's a direct connection. It's like a direct pipe connection, So you just open the tap and then you get all the water flowing in, like that. So you just surrender, and then the mercy comes. And then we are bathed in this mercy. And that mercy is what will give us intelligence, memory, faith, asakti, all of these qualities. That is why they say, Vaishnava, all the 26 qualities will begin to come in. We will not be disturbed or bewildered by material energy or the material happenings of the world. So we will become more and more like that pure devotee with whom we are associating. And thereby it gives us a chance to move out of the spiritual world. And this is something that Parikshit Maharaj wonderfully understood. And we can see in these verses how that aspect is being highlighted. And of course, here the final conclusion of this verse is that says, Mad Bhakta Puja Biyadika. That means my devotee is revered, or he is fit for puja, whom you can revere so much, even more than me, the Lord is saying. Means my devotee is more worshipable than me, is what the Lord is saying. So that's the position that the Lord is giving for the pure devotee of the Lord. So better to be aligned to the devotee of the Lord rather than to the Lord. So that is what our philosophy is all about. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also said the same thing, but in a little different way. He said, Dasa Dasanu Dasa. So whichever way you look at our philosophy of Achintya Veda Veda, Sambandha and then the Prayojana, and after Sambandha and Abhidaya, and then the Prayojana, our position is Dasa Dasanu Dasa, and that is what is being kind of reconfirmed in this particular purport, where Prabhupada concludes saying that if we surrender to the person who surrendered to the Lord, to the person who surrendered to the, like that, if we down the disciplic succession, and then we do seva, then we get the mercy. And when the mercy is flowing, then everything becomes known to us, like I just said. So on that note, I'll stop here. So with this example of Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami, actually Sutta Goswami is trying to say or bring out this aspect in the Naimisharanya gathering. So this was a conclusion of these 5 verses. I'll stop here. If there are any comments or questions, then please go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
You said first one I didn't get the word abhidaya and prayojana. First one is
Samanda, relationship.
okay. So
See, we should
practically,
know
how
what
do
is
we
the
follow
Samanda
this?
of the Lord. Sorry, we should know what is the Samanda of the Lord. What is my relationship? Then, based on that relationship, we do some activities. This is abhidaya, and then the result is the prayojana.
The last one, prayojana, is realization.
Yes, prayojana means the result. What is the benefit that you get? Though a devotee does not look for prayojana, prayojana comes like a good student. Prayojana is passing the exam, but then he is not learning for passing the exam. He wants knowledge, or he wants like that, beyond examination, like that. This beyond liberation or beyond prayojana stage, doing activity like the student trying to do his endeavor and study and understand the subject matter rather than just trying to study for the exam. Both are good, but this is better. I hope that analysis will,
yes,
or the comparison will help us to understand.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Nice class, Prabhuji. Whenever you are giving class, I am coming up with so many questions. So the question is, Prabhuji, when we are saying that we are conditioned soul, so what I think that we are conditioned with Sambandha, Avideya, and Prayojan with God's external energy, right? And when we are liberated, it means we are having Sambandha, Avideya, Prayojan with directly with the God. So there is the condition is there with the God also. But when you are saying that in the spiritual world, we are not conditioned. What is that we are not conditioned? That is the question.
So here, the Acharyas say when they refer to conditioning, they are referring to material conditioning. So it is like we have to add material before that conditioning. So then the explanation becomes more complete. But that is not mentioned every time. Like saying material conditioning, like that we have to read it. When we say conditioned soul, it means we are conditioned to the material aspects, because that is our nature. Because we are also internal potency of the Lord, but we are marginal potencies. Why we are marginal is because we are so minute that we can be influenced by either by the internal potency or by the external potency of the Lord. So you have on one side internal potency of the Lord, and then on the other side you have the external potency of the Lord, and then we are in between. Now, if we are closer to the external potency, which is the material world, and then we are glued to it, then we are conditioned materially. Now, the whole point is we are already in that because we are here. The fact that we are here means that we are closer to the to this conditioning, means materially we are more involved. That we know. We have so many desires. We think we are this body, so on and so forth. Now, for us, the next step is to detach ourselves from this and then move to the other side. And that is what is this whole thing. So for that, we have to know the Lord. We have to know, we have to do some activity, and then the result comes. So this is what is conditioning. Conditioning means material conditioning. I hope that clarifies. And unconditioned means you are not conditioned by material. That means you are with the internal potency of the Lord. We are all internal potencies. Even though we are marginal, we are actually internal potency of the Lord. Any Chetana is an internal potency of the Lord. So internal potency should be with the internal energies of the Lord, not with the external, because that's not a favorable situation, Prabhupada says. So if an internal potency, one internal potency associates with the other internal potencies, then the situation is favorable. So this is how the differentiation is being made. I hope that clarifies.
I also
Yes,
have a
Prabhuji.
question.
Thank you so
Maybe
much.
the exact meaning of Chetana, Prabhu, because you used the word Chetana, Prabhuji.
Yes. Chetana means living entities, no? Jada Vastu and
Okay.
Chetana Vastu. So broadly
Okay.
speaking, internal and external potency. That is why in the spiritual world, there is no Jada Vastu. Everything has Chetana in it. That is why
Yes,
the building will speak, or it can. I'm just giving an example to help us understand. So
Yes,
everybody can actually feel, even a brick or the grass, the stone can feel when Krishna is walking on that stone. So Chetana is there, like that.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This
Hare
Sambandhya. At which stage do we realize Sambandhya with the Lord?
Samandha is realization of the start of our spiritual journey is Samandha. No, Samandha means establishing a relationship with the Lord. Like take this example of a wife. I mean, in the earlier days, arranged marriages, wife and then the husband. Samandha is still not there, but then the lady understands that I am now aligned to this person and I have to develop a Samandha. That means like even though she knows he is my or whatever, now I'll have to realize it, or I have to understand. That's when the love will happen, right? Otherwise, it is just doing some activity. Okay, morning, give coffee. That's whatever. I mean, I'm just taking a material example. So these things that girl is encouraged by the mother and others to follow. So this is our sadhana bhakti. Where we don't have that particular realization or love for the Lord, but then we've been told He is the Lord and you are the servant. So there is a relationship that is being established. It is not realized by us or by me right now. But then I do some activities so that at one point, suddenly there will be love that will develop in my heart. And then everything becomes more spontaneous after that. That is what we all are looking for. And that is what that girl also looks forward when she gets into the marriage, where she wants to move to that level where there is love that is established between them, so that her actions become spontaneous. It is not as per the what is being dictated by the mother or the mother-in-law. I'm just giving that crude example to help us understand. That's a very important example, actually. Prabhupada also mentions that in various talks that he gives. Sometimes he uses these references.
Yeah, Prabhu, thank you so much.
So Samandha is there right from beginning, Mataji. I mean, we know, but then we are not convinced. So the Samandha realization is part of Samandha Jnana. So though we know we are not this body, but what extent we are realized. So that's the journey that we have to make. And the more the Samandha gets established, the Avidaya becomes better, the activity becomes better. So with knowledge, when we do a seva, and Prayojana is always the end result.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji, Avidaya is only the activities or how much Krishna conscious we are? Is it that, Prabhuji? Is it our consciousness or activity?
It is activity.
Only
it is
the
activity that one does based on the consciousness that we have. Our bhakti movement or our Vaishnavism is all about activity and nothing else. Just having that information or that realization and not doing anything about it means that there is no realization, because you are still in the theory state. Then you understood it, but then I will not do. It is like the mother saying, I love the child. The child is very dear to me. But then when it is crying, the mother does nothing. I mean, there's a gap between what the mother is saying or the knowledge that she's trying to convey and the actions. Actions and words are not matching. No, it will become like that. If you say you love, then you will do something which is there. When you take care or make some dish that the kid likes or anything like that. So when there is love means it is implied that there is action, and that is Abhidaya. It's not just theoretical knowledge or realization that he is my child. Okay, I realize he is my child, but I won't do anything. It doesn't match, no? So like that.
That's a great point.
Thank you so much. Yes, Prabhuji. Thanks for the clarity, Prabhuji. Otherwise, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right, so I think we can conclude.
Yes, Prabhuji. If there are any more questions, not any more questions, then we can end the session, Prabhuji.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much.
Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Mahananta Koti Hare Krishna.
Pranam, Prabhu.
You all at
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Dandavat pranam to everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna.